Worst things children said to parents. But before we jump into these chilling stories, a quick heads up, all the stories are sourced from the internet, particularly from Reddit. For those unfamiliar with Reddit, it's a diverse online community where users share stories, experiences, and much more. Honestly, you can find almost anything you want on Reddit. Now that you're in the loop, let's start. My eldest had an imaginary friend. He claimed to be the ghost of a child that died in our house. He would sit in his room, having conversations with him. It was creepy. His imaginary friend was quickly forgotten a couple of weeks after he started preschool. We all breathed a sigh of relief.
The man in the closet. He won't stop staring.
We moved in just last year. My 4-year-old said she saw an old man walking around in our shared closet and would stare at us. I did some research, and the man that lived here before us died in that closet. My adorably innocent 3-year-old told me,
Mommy, when you die, I'm going to keep your body so I can pet your hair.
She was petting my hair at that moment. I'm not a parent. But I was putting my 2-year-old niece to bed while babysitting one night, when she looked over my shoulder and said,
Who's that?
I looked behind me and asked, Who? She said,
The man behind you. He was with you in the kitchen too.
We were the only ones in the house. I spent the rest of the evening in the living room, on the one chair, with its back to the wall. A few months after my mom passed, my daughter was sitting in the TV room. She looked down the hall, and I could tell something caught her eye. She got up and said,
Yaya is in her room.
And proceeded to go in my mom's room and shut the door. I could hear my daughter talking and laughing through the door. I was equal parts scared of and hoping to hear my mom too, but I didn't. My 5-year-old said he sees an old man on the stairs. I asked him to show me where exactly, and he keeps pointing to the ceiling above the stairs. As if the man he refers to would be hanging. Very odd. She was 6-year-old, and asleep in bed beside. All of a sudden, she sat up, looked at me, and said,
The devil lives within my skin.
And a whole load of other frightening stuff. Her voice was calm, it was sort of poetic what she said. Then she lay down, and went back to sleep. Chilled me to the bone. It took me a long time to sleep. Was it a dream? I don't know. A few weeks ago, after my son turned 2 years old, he told me,
Look! The smoke dissipates.
This is not a word in our daily vocabulary, so I asked him what that means, and he said,
It disappears.
Impressed, I asked him where did you learn that word, and he replied,
When I was an adult.
I laughed and asked him, when were you an adult? And without missing a beat answered,
Before I was born.
I was driving my son to daycare. It was just the two of us as I already dropped my other son off at school. My then 3-year-old said to me,
Mommy, I love you more than my first mommy.
I said, Your first mommy? She said,
Yes, my first mommy in California.
We live in the US, but about as far from California as you can get. I said, You lived in California? He said,
Yes, up until Jason stabbed me and then I came to you.
I said, Who is Jason? And then, he just started talking about something else. I tried to get more info from him on it, but he never talked about it again. So weird, and I can't imagine where he would have gotten the fodder for it to make it up in his imagination. The only Jason we knew was someone he saw only occasionally, and my son liked him. There was no fear or bad feelings associated with him. The only media he saw at that point was various kids' TV. Not my kid, but my friends. They were across the country, visiting family. Her 4-year-old points down an old overgrown road, more of a dirt track, and said,
"That was where I used to go to school."
She told him he didn't even go to school yet. Mentioned it to her brother when they drove by another day. He told her that track used to be a school in the 1800s. Same kid was on a walk with his mom in our town around a fairly wooded pond. He asked his mom if they could go another way. She said this is the only path, and asked why. He responded,
"I don't like that man hanging from the tree."
Needless to say, they moved away from that area very quickly. When my boys were younger, they had an imaginary friend called Trick or Trick. Trick or Trick maybe. It was never clear. But my son was telling me about him shortly after we had moved from the old house. Stuff happened there, noises and things like that. So, he's telling me that Trick or Trick is really tall. He comes from the old house. Sometimes, he takes things that don't belong to him. I asked my younger son if there's anything else, and he said,
"He doesn't like you at all, Daddy."
I ask him why, and he start looking nervous. My older son, about 6-year-old at the time, leaves the room. My younger son just stands there, and doesn't say anything. I ask him if Trick or Trick is here now. He looked a bit to his left, then directly into my eyes, and says,
"He said to say no."
Have you ever experienced something similar, or do you know any other real stories like these? Drop yours in the comments and we might feature them in our next videos.